Hi everybody! Welcome to Halo Inspirations, where we give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. My name is Angel, and I'm welcoming you here to our channel. Today we're going to walk together through how to cut fabric. And in my mind, this is the second step to getting those accurate blocks and eventually a beautiful work of art, your quilt. So the first step, as a reminder, is prepping your fabric. And I have done a video on how to do that. And if you haven't seen it, I'll put a link in the description box below. But the general idea is that you're prepping your fabric to get it stable and stiff. And this will in turn allow you to get a more accurate cut on your fabric. So why is it important to get an accurate cut? It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You know that if you buy a jigsaw puzzle, if somebody didn't have a good cutter and they were kind of wonky or the shapes weren't right, you're either going to have a really hard time piecing it all together, or you're going to be like cramming it in there trying to get that. I know. I've done this. I don't know if you have, but I have been in there just cramming it in trying to get that one piece to fit because I know that's where that piece goes. It's the same thing with quilting. So the more accurate the cut is so important because then in turn, when you're building your blocks from those units or those strips, it will be a more accurate size that you need. Number one. Number two, your seams may nest, or you won't have one that's this big and one this big that are supposed to go together. Bottom line, it's going to make great blocks and a great quilt. So the cut is extremely important. And I have to be honest with you, I'm not even going to say probably. It is my least favorite process, but I understand how important it is. So the first thing that you're going to know or want to know is what materials you need. The first thing you're going to need is a cutting mat, okay? I use a self-healing cutting mat, and I absolutely love it. I've had this thing for years and years, and it's still gold. Still working. You just got to maintain it a little bit. It's not hard. And it'll last you forever. Now, why do you want a cutting mat? Because we're going to use a rotary blade. And if you didn't have something to protect the surface which you put your fabric on, you're going to destroy it. Not only will you destroy the table that you're setting it on or whatever, the counter, whatever you put your fabric on, but you're also going to destroy the blade. And you need a good blade. So that brings me to my second thing. The rotary cutter with a rotary blade. This bad boy is super sharp. It doesn't look like much, but let me tell you, my daughter's probably going to hate me for saying this, but last summer, no, she's in her 20s. Last summer, she cut herself in the wrist. I don't know how that happens. I still don't get the idea, but she did it. Scary deal. I've seen many, many other stories of people hurting themselves. So you just really want to be careful with this. But you do need a rotary cutter. I'm using a 45 millimeter blade inside this cutter. And this brand happens to be Alpha. I've bought another brand before and it didn't feel as sturdy. I really, really enjoy this Alpha Deluxe, I think it's called. And it's origamic, so that, it helps with not getting so tired through cutting, or if you have arthritis and you can't do much. So I absolutely love, love, love this rotary cutter. I'm not an affiliate with anything that I mentioned here today. I'm not an affiliate, but I do love this cutter. So then the last thing, besides fabric, of course, right? So the last thing you're going to need is a ruler. And as a beginner, if you can buy one ruler, I would highly suggest that you buy a 6.5 by 24.5. Couple of reasons. First and foremost, it's very versatile. You can use it for a lot of different things. Second reason, when we buy quilting cotton fabric, it generally comes in a 42 by or up to 44 inch in width. If we fold that in half, that'll give you 21 to 22 inches. This 24 and a half inch ruler covers that all the way, plus a little bit what you'll need. So I highly recommend a 6 by 24 or a 6.5 by 24. I would go with, if I only had one, I'd do the 6.5 by 24.5. Just an FYI. Now, I'm going to be showing you how to cut your fabric with an Omni grid. This is my very first ruler. Since then, I have came across creative grids. I gotta tell you, this is my absolute most favorite quilting ruler brand ever. Again, I'm not an affiliate. It's just my fave. And when I bring the camera closer, I'll actually show you the differences and maybe understand why. The Omni grid does go down to 1/8 of an inch, and it's working because it's that right length. And I'm right now in the process of switching all my brands over to all my rulers into Creative Grid brand. I think it's important that we utilize the same brand. Number one, you get used to the way the markings are, and so it eliminates the idea that you may cut something by accident in the wrong size. The other reason, I have one ruler that I question it. When I line it up to another ruler, the lines don't match. So if you're in the same brand, that's definitely going to be okay. Now, I haven't had any problems between the Omni grid and the Creative grid. I just have a problem with that one ruler. So I just think it's a good idea to really keep with the same brand if you end up going into quilting and buying more rulers. So you need a ruler, a rotary blade, a self-healing mat, and your fabric. Now, some people actually recommend that when you're learning how to cut, buy yourself a couple dollar fat quarter. If you get it on sale, you can even find it for 75 cents, or maybe some old scrappy material that you have, and just practice a cut. Practice cutting, maybe 2.5 strips or something, to really get the feel of using the ruler and the rotary cutter. And then after you feel comfortable with it, or have a few dry runs, then you go to your main quilting fabric for the pattern that you're using. So, the first step in making a great cut is squaring your fabric. So, how do we do that? Well, you're going to want to take your prepped fabric, remember? And you're going to want to put it selvage end to selvage end. I got another piece of material here to show you what a good selvage is. This one's really clear to see. They're usually a white strip, or it could be the same color, but it'll be off a little bit, and it's definitely much tighter woven. The reason for these is it protects it from fraying. They also use it to put brand names, artist names, designer names. There might be circles with numbers. It might tell you like what colors are in there to help you match. We do not use this in quilting because it's so tightly woven. We don't put it in with our quilts. We cut it out. It's not a good idea to use it in your quilt. Some people though do use it for different projects because some of them are really cool. I don't. I just trash mine. I don't have time. So I just trash mine. But just know that if you're interested in saving them for another project, there are people out there and lots of ideas out there what you could do with your selvages, especially when they're really cute. The other side though, just so you know, now this one actually still has a white strip, but sometimes it'll have like punched holes in it. So again, you're going to want to take your fabric selvage to selvage, okay? Selvage to selvage, or with the fabric. And you're going to want to put the back end through your middle finger and your index finger, and then the other end with your thumb and your index finger. And you'll do that on both sides. And then you're going to make it dance. We're going to do a little dance here, do a little wave. And you just want to wiggle this around a bit. And the idea is that that part on the bottom needs to be straight, okay? Let me see if I can do this so it's really bad. Give you a demonstration here. Yeah, there it is. So can you see that there's a wrinkle that's going from the bottom all the way to the top? You don't want that, okay? Oops. You do want to try and get it as straight on the bottom by wiggling. This is a lot easier said than done as far as talking goes. You want to try and wiggle it around a little bit, do it a little bit of a wave, and try to get that bottom as straight as you can. And when you think you have done that, I want to mention a couple of things. There we go. You might notice that one edge is not, it doesn't look straight. Or you might notice both of them like that, okay? That's okay. That's why we're doing this. We're getting a true line on the bottom. Okay, and then you want to place this down, okay, onto your mat. Now, wow, it's pretty good. The reason why your edges may look like they're not straight, or, you know, you have one that's going like this. The worst I've had is, I'm not kidding you, it was over an inch. I thought I was going to die. But the reason is that it's the way that they cut it at the store. If they don't cut it straight or on the grain, then you're going to see that it's off. So that's why we want to square it up, not to the edges, not top to top like even, because that won't necessarily be even either. But you want to give yourself a good line at the bottom. And then you're going to want to hand press it. Don't throw an iron to it. The reason being is because if we need to re-square because we didn't do it right the first time, if you've ironed it, then you've got this serious crease in there and it just makes a mess of everything. So we just want to hand press it. Now, if you didn't have a ruler that is long enough, that 24.5-inch ruler to go across this with, then you're going to want to take the bottom of your fabric to the selvages, that fold to the selvages, and you're going to want to do another wiggle, okay? Until it's straight, and then you want to place it down again and give yourself a nice hand press, okay? If you can not fold it twice, as a beginner, I would highly suggest doing the one time. When you start making multiple folds, you're giving an opportunity for shift. Yes, shift happens. So, you want to just, if you can, if you have that size ruler that'll fit that one-time fold, that's perfect. If not, this is how you can make do, okay? And then you'll go to the next step the same. Everything else will be the same, but you have to be very cognitive of what's going on with your fabric once you start multiplying the folds, okay? Even though I've cut a lot of fabric, lots, but I still only fold it one time. And the reason why I do is because I want to eliminate anything that I can control. That opportunity with those multiple folds, I have a big enough ruler, so I want to take advantage of eliminating any opportunities of something going wrong. So I still today only fold it one time. I'm controlling the opportunities, okay? So now that we've done that, the next thing that we're going to do is give ourselves another square line. So what I'm going to do is bring the camera closer to the table. You're not going to be able to see me, but you're going to be able to see my fabric and my rulers, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, as promised, when I brought the camera so you could actually see onto the table, I wanted to show you the differences between an Omni grid and a creative grid and why it is that I am switching from the Omni grid to the creative grid. Now again, this was my first ruler and I love it. It's good. It just has some elements that I wish the creative grid incorporated into their rulers. So the first thing you're going to notice is the color. The Omni grid is like a yellowish greenish color, where the creative grid is black and white. And for me, that doesn't matter. I don't have a problem with either or, but I have heard that a lot of quilters do say that they see better in one color or the other. And another thing that rulers offer is frosting. They'll come frosted, and for some quilters that also says it helps them to see the fabric underneath the or through the ruler, excuse me. One of the other differences that is very important, and the only real reason that I'm switching, is the grids. So let's say we want to cut a 1.5 inch strip. If we're using the creative grid, we go 1.5 here. Okay, that's my hash mark. And if you look, there's a white line, there's a dot, there's actually a little like square thing here. You can actually cut a 1.5 inch square, but it is a point. And then you've got another point, and then another one, and another one. And what this is doing all the way up the ruler is allowing me to make sure that that line of my fabric is straight with that line on the ruler. Now, if we were to cut that same 1.5 strip using my Omni grid, you go 1.5, and if you look, there are no other lines all the way up the ruler. So I feel like I'm winging it. Now, there are other things you can do to make sure that you're getting a straight strip out of it. But this, to me, it was a game changer. It really made it easier to line up that fabric along that line and make sure that I'm cutting a straight strip. Because remember, accuracy in cutting is key. One other thing that is different, and if you notice these circles on the creative grid, they seem a little frosted. Those are actually grips. So what it does is when you push down to cut, it actually helps to grip onto the fabric underneath to prevent it from sliding. On the Omni grid, they don't have those. And what I had to do is I had to put, like if you can see this here, it's a piece of medical tape. I'm a nurse, so I have plenty of it. So I put a piece of medical tape under here to help grip when I push down on the ruler. For me, it's a convenience. It wasn't a necessary. For me, it's really about having that grid of lines that go all the way across and all the way up in all of the increments. So that is the difference. One of the things I wanted to point out that's the same is they both break down into 1/8 of an inch. So if you notice between the 1 and 2, if we count all the hashes, you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hashes. So it's broken down into 1/8. So if you wanted to cut 1 7/8 of a strip, you'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you'd use this hash mark to cut all the way up. Same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you've got your mark of 1 7/8. Now, it doesn't come up as frequently as whole numbers or half numbers or 1/4 inch or 3/4 inch, but on occasion you may need a 7/8 or 3/8 measurement. And if you didn't have it, it's not the end of the world, but it's very much a convenience. You'd have to either kind of guesstimate or you'd have to use a different method. But it's not a necessary, but it's definitely a very nice convenience when you come across one of those measurements. So that is the difference, and that is why I'm switching from Omni grid to creative grid on all my rulers. And yeah, let's get started on finishing squaring up our fabric and then cutting some strips together. I wanted to keep you close in and zoomed in on this part because I really want you to be able to see what I'm doing. It makes more sense that way. Now, the first thing I wanted to show you is this is really, you can see that it's not straight, and it's worse as it goes up. Okay, so we've already created what we believe to be a true line down here. So now we want to do one that goes up on the side. So we have two lines of reference that we believe are square. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you want to check to make sure you're not cutting off too much. Okay, and you have to know what you're cutting all the way up the fabric, because like I said, it gets worse up there. So what might look like a lot down here that I'm cutting off, it's covering what's upstairs on the top of the fabric near the selvages. Okay, I'm on this particular ruler, I'm going to use the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm doing that because I have reference points all along here that I can see the fabric. And that's kind of important. If I use this 1 inch mark right about here, there is a place, but I can't really see it all that clear. You could even go as far as using this line, the 1 1/2, and I still have room at top. So maybe I'll go ahead and do that. That way I can see all along exactly what it is that I'm lining up. Okay. Now notice I'm not using any lines on the mat. I'm using the line, the fold that we believe is true. That's because we do believe that it's true. We don't know about these lines specifically when it comes to our fabric, especially the way that I've laid it onto the mat. So I'm going to go ahead and use this 1 1/2 inch mark. Now you want to line the fabric up so that the line is on the fabric. It's not too far in, and it's definitely not hanging off of the end. You want it to be resting on that line of the fold. Okay, I might get in the way of the camera, and I apologize, but I need to be able to see just for a minute, and then I'll back off. Okay, so that is what I believe is true along this line. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use our rotary cutter, and we're going to cut off this particular portion to get that straight line. And I'm going to zoom you out so that you can be able to see that, and we can work with this together. Okay, so I've zoomed you a little bit because I really want you to see this. And one of the things that I forgot to mention is that I am right-handed, so I'm teaching in a right-handed way. If you're left-handed, you just want to use the other side, but do the same process just on the other side of the fabric. Okay, so I'll be honest with you, when I turned the camera off, I made sure that the fabric was lined up, and it looks like it came out a little bit. Yeah, it sure did. Okay, but I made sure it was lined up. And then what you're going to want to do before you actually cut, put a little pressure on your ruler so it doesn't shift, but you want to check all the way up to make sure you are cutting off, not too much, but you're covering off all of the crookedness, because mine's more crooked underneath than it is on top. So then what you're going to want to do is you're going to put your hand on your ruler, take your pinky and set it on the outside here of your ruler. This is going to offer you two things. It's going to help prevent the shifting as you're rotary blading, or cutting your rotary blading. I don't even know if that's a word. But you're going to be cutting off this scrap area, making that second true line. And it also allows to make sure there's, that your thumb's out of the way of the rotary blade. So then you're going to put your pan down, make sure the pinky's there, nice and flat, put some pressure on it. Go ahead and activate your rotary blade, and then you want to cut along, pause, bring it up a little bit. Again, place your pinky on the outside, make sure your thumb's on the inside, put that down hard, and then cut the rest of the way. Now, I have noticed that some people like to do this. If I do that, okay, this first of all doesn't feel good. But if I did it this way, I tend to shift. So that's the reason why I use a full palm. There are some people that feel like when they use a full palm that they shift. So it really depends on what's comfortable for you in preventing this ruler from shifting, because if you get a slight shift as you're cutting, then again, you're not going to have a true straight line. Pull that off, and now you have two straight lines, two lines that you can use as references to square. Now, then I just throw this away personally. Okay, so now you have to flip the fabric, because like I said, I'm right-handed, so I need to cut right-handed. If I put it down like this, I can't use this side. Now, if you're left-handed, it'll be the other side. Now, if you didn't want to flip your fabric, what you could have done is lined it up over here on the inside, always using this as your square. You don't want to go like this, okay? Because there's no reference line over here. So we can't cut like this because there's no reference line over here, okay? So you want to be on the fabric. So what you could have done is line this up on this end and then take another, well, I would have done it the other way. Okay, so we would have done it, lined it up with this one on this side, and then taking your other ruler and laying it down here, okay? And then pull this away and then cut. That way you wouldn't have to flip your fabric. Again, that's another option to take away opportunity, but I didn't do that. So we're gonna take it very easily and we're gonna flip the fabric over, okay? The next thing we're gonna do is cut strips. So again, I'm going to pull you in closer because I want you to see how I use the two lines of reference, and then we'll go ahead and cut a couple strips. Okay, I wanted to bring you in, and I'm really close, and I know I'm not using this ruler to cut the strips, and I'll pull it out whenever we go to cut the strips, but I wanted you to see this, and I felt like this ruler would demonstrate it much easier to see for you. So we're going to cut a 2-inch strip. Now, if you notice, we've got this, what we believe to be the true line, okay? And I have it resting, the bottom of the ruler resting along that true line. And then we just cut this true line. So now we've taken the 2-inch line and we've lined it up. Now, what's important to understand is that it's on the fabric, okay? It's not too far in. And it's definitely not, it's not on this side of the fabric. It's on the fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and move this. So to demonstrate, you don't want this, okay? Because then you're cutting yourself short. And then you don't want it too far in, because then again, you're not cutting correctly. That'd be a little more than 2 inches. So just be sure to rest it on the fabric. Okay, so now I put the ruler down. I'm lined up on the bottom. I'm lined up along the 2-inch marks all the way up to the top of the ruler, to the top or to the selvages of the fabric, okay? Again, I am right-handed. If you were left-handed, it'd be on the other side. All right, so we're gonna put our palm down with the pinky on the outside. Activate your blade. Oh, I locked it. All right. Make sure your thumb's out of the way and go ahead and cut. About halfway or so. Give it a pause. Put your hand back down. Pinky on the outside, thumb out of the way. There we go. And then we've got our first 2-inch strip. Now, one of the ways that you check it is you open it up. And right at the fold, if you had a V or a peak, that would mean that your fabric is not square. Okay, mine looks good, yay! So there's your first 2-inch strip. Now, I don't know why this happens, but as you keep cutting 2-inch strips or whatever size strips, if you keep cutting along, eventually your fabric will come off square again. This line will start to go crooked. So you'll need to re-square this line. One way to stop that, or to make it happen less frequently, is to actually cut in multiples. So if we were doing 2-inch squares, you could take this out to the 6-inch mark because this is 6 inches. You could lay it down, get it all lined up and straight and pretty. Okay, straight on the bottom, straight all the way up, and you could cut 6 inches, pull that back, and then cut 6 inches, move it over, cut 4 inches, move it over, cut 2 inches, okay? And then you would have 3 strips. It actually takes less time, but you've only made 1 cut on this primary fabric, okay? So that is an option for you. All right, now once you have all your 2-inch strips cut, let's say you wanted to cut a 2-inch square, okay? The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off my selvage. So I know that this line down here is true, so I'm going to line it up on the bottom, make sure all the selvage is not on there, and go ahead and cut. Now from there, we know that this is 2 inches, so we could just line this up this right here on the 2-inch line. Nope, that won't work, sorry. We're going to flip the fabric, line it up on the 2-inch. You can see that the 2 inches good up here, the 2 inches good down here, the 2 inches good up here, and make another cut. If you had to do a 2-inch by 4-inch, you move it to the 4-inch. We know this is lined up, we know this is lined up, we know this is lined up, and you would make that cut. So that would give you a 2 by 4. All right. So that is your gist of cutting fabrics. Thanks y'all for coming by and staying a little while with me today. It has been my absolute pleasure to walk with you through how to square and cut your fabric. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave them in the comments below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Next week, we are going to be tackling one of my most favorite topics, the 1/4-inch seam. Oh boy, I'm really truly excited about this one. For those of you that are new to quilting, I first want to say welcome. And as a gift to you, I have put together something called the Sewing Box Essentials to Avoid Frustrations for the Beginner Quilter. And basically it's a list of items with a small description, and I have included a checklist. But it's the essentials that I believe will make your quilting journey more successful and a lot more enjoyable. And as a bonus, I've also done a list of some of those acronyms or sewing terms that as you're going through your Facebook groups or at your guild meetings or wherever it is that you are experiencing these more experienced quilters, and you hear this jargon and like things like UFOs, WAF, RSTs, and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no earthly idea. Are we talking about flying saucers? Yeah, those kinds of things. I put together this list so it's like a resource for you so that it helps you navigate through that jargon a little bit. All of this is free. All you have to do is go to haloinspired.com and click the link, provide your name and email, and I'll send it straight to your inbox. Again, this is free as a gift to say welcome. If you have liked this video, please like, share with your friends, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you get a notification of when I post a new video. And until next time, may you continue to be inspired, productive, and joyful, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. Thanks, y'all. Happy quilting!